Welcome back. We're talking about the National Center for Assessment in Higher Education. It takes me a pleasure to be welcoming Dr. Abdurrahman Al-Shamrani, the Director of the Department of Language Testing, National Center for Assessment in Higher Education. Welcome to Family Time, Dr. Abdurrahman.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We are too, because we are going to know more about the National Center for Assessment in Higher Education. Tell us more, please, about it, the role of it, how is it working, and the idea that we have about that it's like sort of following up the process of higher education. How is it going on? So, is that true or false?
Well, the National Center for Assessment is an educational institution that is self-funded and non-profit.
Self-funded?
Yes, it's self-funded. It's a non-for-profit organization, and the main task of the National Center is assessment, and that comes in the form of producing indices, indicators, and some form of licensing that will help the educational institutions or different bodies, for like if they want to admit some people to programs, or if they want to employ some people, that they will have in their portfolio more things that could help the decision makers take an appropriate decision.
Mm-hmm. There was a workshop held recently. It was a 2-day workshop. Tell us more about this. What happened, who attended, and what were the recommendations that you came up with at the end of the workshop?
Yes. The center is now 11 years old, and after at least more than 10 years of practice in the field, in the educational field, the center wants to review and reorient and even deconstruct the strategic plan, its strategic plan. And the workshop is just only one link of many links that we are doing to develop and enhance and keep abreast our strategic plan.
Yeah.
So the workshop is the title of the workshop is International Assessment and Evaluation: The Experiences of International Organizations. So we were able to invite distinguished assessment centers around the world. We were lucky to have with us two main organizations, the ETS, the American ETS, the Educational Testing Service, and ACT, the American College Testing. Although ACT now is the name, they don't associate the acronym ACT with what it stands for from before. Now they have eliminated the real name. The real name is just ACT. Okay. And these are world organizations, testing organizations, and ETS is almost 70 years old now, and ACT is also over 50 years old.
Yeah.
And what we invited them to get their experiences, to learn from their successes, and to also learn from their difficulties and challenges.
Dr. Abdurrahman, something that I would be thinking about, a lot of people also would be thinking about, like why a country would need an assessment center to assess the process of education, whether it's higher education or any other type of education that is provided in that country. How can this contribute to the country in light of these centers that you've just mentioned, and they are 50 and 70 years old, so this is something that has been there for a long time. why a country or how this is going to affect the education where these assessment centers are there.
Yes. Well, assessment is a principle, and it's something that we need in our own lives.
True.
And we apply them daily, but we don't call them assessment.
Not officially.
Yes.
Someone would call and say, okay, I'll give you my opinion.
Yes, some sort of that. Education comes among the higher priorities for any country. In fact, it could be probably the first, to consider, with health and with the defense of the country. And, education is a very essential component of any developed society.
True.
So you cannot have education systems without having independent bodies, which we say that the center is. It's an independent body that will assess our achievement, how well is our education going, and what direction it is taking. So I think assessment is a necessity. In fact, it should have been born with the
process of education itself.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Dr. Abdurrahman, the vision or the mission that you have for the center, is it something that is changed every year, or you have a general mission and it's there all the time? The answer will be after the report. We're talking about the assessment center for higher education, and as Dr. Abdurrahman told us now, it's a non-profitable organization, NPF, and it's self-financed, and it's there to evaluate the process of higher education. How is it going on? We're highlighting this because there was a workshop that was held recently, and we are eager to know more about this. Why would a group of people would want to establish such an entity? How is that going to affect the community, education generally, and if the goals are changing over years, or it's something that is standard there and they are trying to meet every year? When we come back, please stay tuned.
Mr. John, we'd like to ask you first, what's the main goal of this workshop?
Well, at the invitation of the NCA, our goal was to learn more about international testing, and also to provide some of our own experiences to the people attending the workshop. What I've learned is that many of our issues are the same, which is we all want to improve education. We all want to have more young people be successful getting through schools and onto college and graduating from college and moving into the workforce. And that's an international issue, and not just a kingdom issue or a United States issue.
Can you tell us briefly what's the ACT?
Yes, we started off 53 years ago, essentially providing a test in the United States to help assess whether people were ready to go to college or not. And so that was our introductory product. It's an assessment of people in our school system's readiness to go from college to high school. We now have developed a test for 8th grade and 9th grade, essentially testing what people are learning, if they are on track to be successful in taking the ACT test to get into college. The equivalent, which is better known in your country, is the SAT test, which actually does a somewhat similar thing. So they're represented here at this conference by ETS. To some extent we're competitors, but we're both about trying to assess people's readiness to get into colleges and universities.
We're back. welcome back. And we're still talking about the National Center for Assessment in Higher Education. Dr. Abdurrahman, just before the report, I was asking you about the missions that you have. Does it change over time, or you have a standard one and that you're trying to meet every year by following up and assessing? Yes.
Yes, any organization when it starts, its work, it begins with, it must begin with an objective and with a vision and so on and so forth. But that changes over time. So there is a focus. This center is for assessment. Okay, that's the focus point. But the vision changes. Like, for example, now our vision is to aspire to be a world leading center in assessment. We are based here in Riyadh. We start from here, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, but we have aspirations to have,
expansions in other countries.
Influence worldwide.
Yes.
Like, I'll just tell you of some example. For example, we have developed a test for Arabic for non-native speakers, and that is like the TOEFL. Okay, so if we are able to promote this test and market this test, and it will become like the TOEFL internationally, and that will give you some lead internationally.
Definitely.
And also we have, considering cooperation with distinguished organizations like ACT and ETS, we could share also some of their expertise, and we will give them also our expertise, and we exchange ideas, and that's one of the purposes of the workshop.
Workshop, exactly, or conferences generally. Dr. Abdurrahman, such entities or organizations that are having aims of becoming international and stuff, I am sure that you face difficulty, especially that you are non-for-profit or organization as well. Tell me about the challenges that you're facing, the center, I mean.
Yes, it's not an easy challenge, I must say.
Yeah.
And there are we as for the center, we always look to positive competition. We don't believe that an organization will go against another organization.
No, we are all working under the same umbrella.
We are working, and there is room for everybody to flourish. And there is room for those who have clear visions and who have better products.
Yeah.
And that they will always prosper and remain.
Yeah.
So I think for every serious organization, especially in the field of assessment, I think there is room, and continuation will remain for those who have clearer objectives, for those who have better products.
As you're the director of the language testing department, tell me please about the STEP. You have a STEP program?
Okay. Well, I must tell you that we have now 11 major tests. I mean majors, like...
that you developed?
Yes.
The center developed?
We developed...
by professors and instructors
from, our, members and clients, and they come from universities, from education institutions, and so on and so forth. So we are from here. We are all local. The center now takes pride that even all of our staff are Saudis. Almost 98. We had only one American fellow who was with us to help us check the STEP that you just asked about. The STEP test is standardized test for English proficiency. It is very much like the TOEFL, but we tried, after doing a lot of research, to develop this test for the Arab locality. Because the TOEFL, after good amount of research and testing, we realized that there is that dimension of bias, cultural bias.
There is, in terms of the comprehension, in terms of the listening, the writing.
The items, even the small items, not even the reading comprehension as general, even the small items.
Yes.
They can imply cultural bias, and we try, first of all, it's a principle that we have to establish.
Yes.
Is justice, and to have tests that are bias-free. And we work hard for that. And it's one of the big challenges that we face.
So you don't have any cultural references in the STEP program or the test of that?
Of course, language and culture are inseparable.
Exactly.
But
so related.
We try to minimize the bias. And also, the STEP test is accessible locally also, more than other international tests like the TOEFL or IELTS. It is locally administered, locally produced, locally administered, and it is easier to, especially for bigger organizations. Is it accredited,
Dr. Abdurrahman?
Yes.
The STEP test, is it accredited? I mean...
it is linked to international exams like the TOEFL, and the accreditation comes from our institutions here. Like, for example, now the STEP test is a requirement in all Saudi universities, higher educations. All those those who apply for any graduate program must take the STEP.
Which is a big success.
Yeah, it is a big success.
And what are the similarities? What's common between the TOEFL and the STEP for people who might be familiar to the TOEFL but not to the STEP?
Basically, you have four components of any language. The reading comprehension, and the writing, and the listening comprehension, and the speaking. Any language would have to have these four components.
Sure.
So the focus here is a bit different from like the TOEFL. For example, if you develop a test for academic purposes, probably you need to dwell more like on reading and on writing, much less on like speaking. The STEP is composed of four main fields.
Sections.
Reading comprehension, and listening comprehension, and writing, and compositional analysis. Compositional analysis relates to writing, but it's in the form of multiple choice questions, as
so it's easier.
As against like free writing. It's not easier. It is challenging. The items that are created here.
The MCQ is challenging.
Yes.
Multiple choice is very challenging because you are not sure which is the really 100% specific answer. You might have one that is 90%, 95, 98, and 100.
No, but these are like misconceptions about
MCQ.
MCQ, yeah. If you create good items in MCQ, every item and every details of the items are thoroughly, and they are scrutinized very carefully.
Yeah.
So there is no room for like it is challenging, or the people guess. They have
no guess.
No guess.
No guess. MCQ. I guess this was the misconception that we had when we were like children. That MCQ, it's so easy, we can guess.
Yes.
No guess in MCQ. It's really hard and harsh, because now the new trend, or maybe that's how it was put later, I don't know, that all the answers are okay, but there is one that is right by 95%, there is one that 97, 98, and there's 100%. So you'll be confused, really. If you don't know the specific piece of information, you really would get lost. We are going to stop with the report, and we'll be back. We're talking about the National Center for Assessment for Higher Education here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And now we know that the STEP program, which is locally developed by this center, is now a requirement for every everyone who is about to be enrolled in the Saudi universities and also about to continue their postgraduate studies. When we are back, we'll know more about the center. Please stay tuned.
Dr. Yazid, first of all, I would like to ask you, what's the main goal of this workshop?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to say it's a great honor to be in Saudi Arabia. And we were invited by the NCA to participate in a workshop to use our expertise and to share our expertise with NCA about education, testing, assessment, something we've been doing for a long time. ETS has been around for 65 years. We are the subject matter experts in assessment and testing and psychometrics. So we're honored to be invited by NCA. They shared with us what they've been doing, the incredible work they've done in 10 years. They've really done a phenomenal work, and they've asked us to be here to share with them our experiences and help in any way we can. So it's a great honor to be here, and they're doing a great job.
Excellent, Dr. Yazid. Also, perhaps some people didn't really know about this kind of thing. What I meant by kind of thing, the ACT, for example. What exactly the ACT?
Okay, so there's two organizations. So ACT is one organization. We are ETS, Educational Testing Organizations. We are the biggest testing organization in the world. We do about 50 million tests in 180 countries every year. And basically what it is, it's tests like the SAT, if you want to study in an American university, but also we do GRE, which is a test if you want to do graduate school, and also exams like the TOEFL or TOEIC, which are proficiency exams in the English language. TOEIC is for the business side, and TOEFL is for the academic side. So basically what we provide tests around the world, and they're based on being the fair test, reliable test, and valid test, and we help people assess their capability and ensure that they are on the right level. So this is what we do. NCA is doing the same thing in Saudi Arabia. We've been around for much longer, and we are the biggest one around the world. So we are always honored to be invited and to give our view on assessment and testing. And assessment and testing is very important to a society because it really helps improve your education, improve the society as a whole. So that's really a very important thing. We are a non-profit, a non-governmental organization, and we are a global organization all around the world. And to see what Saudi Arabia has done in the last 10 years with NCA is really a great thing for me to see. And especially in my case, being partly from Algeria, to see a fellow Arab country do so well in a very short amount of time, 10 years, is really incredible. And we're happy to help. And hopefully, we'll be able to help NCA go to the next level.
Welcome back, and we're talking about the National Center for Assessment in Higher Education. Dr. Abdurrahman, I want to know why you are a non-profit organization. From where do you get the fund to develop yourself? And you've been here for 10 years in the market, and it needs money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many things that the center gets involved with financially, and in order to develop its product.
Yeah.
First of all, let me say that the center was founded by a royal decree from the Council of Ministers, and so it is in this sense a government body. But because it is self-funded, it's not funded by the government. It is like similar to the private sector in this respect. We get, of course, in the decree, it was spelled out that the center should take some compensation to account for all the monies involved with developing the tests. So we charge 100 riyals for every time the applicant takes the test.
So there are fees, but the fees are for developing yourself. So
yes.
But there's no profit.
We don't like to call them fees really, and we call them compensations. Because we are involved with so many expenses
Definitely, yes. Yes.
And we know that compensation helps us a great deal in developing our products. And since it is a non-for-profit organization, we spend on research, because we do a lot of research on our products, to make sure that they are valid and they are reliable and they are they are
R&D, the research and development in any organization, Dr. Abdurrahman, needs a lot of financial share.
Yes.
I mean, for companies, for very successful companies or organizations worldwide, the international brands, they put like a big number of the budget into the R&D. So you will need a lot of money later on if you want to continue in the process of the research specifically.
Absolutely. Any organization that does not give a considerable chunk
for
of its
research and
budget for research will not have longer visions.
And no longer life in the market as well.
Absolutely.
Dr. Abdurrahman, the English language here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as you're working in the process of testing and evaluating and assessing that, how it could be developed, what do you think still the Saudi students need more to improve their English language?
Okay. The achievement of the English language is just like the achievement of any other subject matter.
Yeah.
It's like the achievement of math, chemistry, biology. It's one of the subjects. But because of the international influence now, and the international influence of the English language, our people have become more exposed to the English language. So I see to it that in the next 10 years or so, I think there will be better performance on the part of our students in the field of English. I hope.
What do you think still the part that needs to be or needs more work on so that the English language would become better?
Of course, our educational programs, they have to develop very efficient programs that will develop the English language, like any other subject matter. You need to have developed programs that will help students attain the skills that they should get from their subjects.
How do you evaluate the level of the English language now among students?
I think it's improving, but as of now, it's still below the expectation.
From a rank of 10, what would you provide it?
It's hard to say. It's really hard to say.
It's a diplomatic answer.
Yeah, no,
I will take it.
No,
I usually don't take diplomatic answers, but this one I will take.
But because we test English.
Yes.
Like in our, like for example, we do an achievement test.
And you don't have statistics for that, Dr. Abdurrahman?
I didn't bring with me any statistics, but
you do. I mean, you have.
Yeah.
You're measuring the level of the students, like who's getting above the 90% or 95 and stuff, right?
Okay. Well, let me say, for example, like we have 2 achievement tests. One for the arts and one for the sciences.
Yeah.
Okay. Those who want to go to the sciences, and for those who want to go to the science fields, they have an English section on their test, and our students are faring well with that section. And I could tell you, but these are students who are like high-ranking students. Those are students who have ambition to go to very competitive schools. So these, students have, I would say, an edge, on their performance in the English language than others.
This is also normal. In any community, you'll find some people who are at the edge, as you mentioned, and there are some who are lower, and but the balance is for the number. I mean, the number of the people on the edge should be few, and the majority of the people should have like a certain level of English.
Right.
But having this like on a graph or something, this is so normal, the bell
Right,
one. You're
right,
going to have very
absolutely.
few at the top, and the majority are going to be in the middle, and on the extremes, very few as well.
Right, right.
We are going to stop with the report, and we'll be back.
Well, we also test people's readiness to go into specific jobs. So after they get out of college, or if they don't go to college, but they're interested in having a career, we actually have a suite of products that test whether someone, we map jobs, so if someone wants to be an accountant or a plumber, we have those jobs defined, and then we create assessments. So if somebody wants to become an accountant or a plumber, 2 different tests they could take to see how ready they are or whether they need to develop some further skills. And then employees can use the test to say, oh, I want to hire this person because they have the right background and experience to be whatever job it is that they're looking for. So that's a product that's been interesting to a lot of people where they are trying to develop a much more advanced workforce.
Welcome back. We're talking about the National Center for Assessment and Higher Education, as I've just watched one of the guests in the reports calling it NCA, right? This is the abbreviation for it. Dr. Abdurrahman, I want to know your upcoming future plans, a project that you're working on these days and you're about to establish in the National Center for Assessment.
Well, I must tell you that, because, well, let me comment on the acronym NCA. NCA is the abbreviation for National Center for Assessment.
Yeah.
And we have a logo, we call it Qiyas.
Okay.
Which is, either way is good.
Or evaluation. Yeah.
I like NCA.
Okay.
Because, I think it is more like direct and, so, anyway. As for our, we have, as I said, we have developed 11 tests now. And some of them are not just, many of them are high-stake tests.
Yes.
And some of them are, of course, for admission, some of them are for licensing, and some of them are like for testing the outcomes like of learning. Like, for example, there's a big project coming up when we are going to test, the outcomes of our colleges. What may be called, exit exams. Like you want to measure those who just graduated from college. How much they achieved from the syllabus they got.
This is crucial.
Yeah, well, it is crucial, but it gives us an indication of how much we are achieving from the syllabus of that we have gone through.
Most of the times, the final test that you have is not really enough to evaluate you or assess how much you've taken during the academic process.
But because of the great reputation that the center has had in the last 10 years, there are many people who are approaching the center, asking it to develop like certain measures or indicators, or like, for example, you cannot imagine, like, for example, center has developed a very huge study about judges selection of judges, for example. We have already done one for the prosecutors.
We wish you the best, Dr. Abdurrahman, and I guess that you're doing a great job and being here for 10 years, and now one of the tests that you have just developed at the center is a requirement for all the Saudi students to be enrolled to colleges and universities. This is a big success. Really, congratulations on that. Dr. Abdurrahman Al-Shamrani, the Director of the Department of Language Testing at the National Center for Assessment and Higher Education. Thanks a lot for being here with us.
Thank you.
We wish you the best. Good luck.
Thank you.
Our episode is going to be replayed tonight, 11:30 tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. See you next Saturday. Good luck.